Everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Today we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Alexander Siddig. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to see you, man.
Husk.
Good to see you
let's
too,
have fun.
Good to see you too.
You guys have known each other for 26 years, or
long time, longer than I've known
28 years. 28 years.
Yeah, more than half my life. So I pretty much known you 2/3 of my entire existence on this planet.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
It's pretty awesome.
I don't see enough of you though, because I've either been living in England or been living on the East Coast, and I don't get down to LA. But if I did, boy, I'd
You know,
talk you.
well, I know you say because a lot of our time together on the show was we didn't really have that many scenes, so I'd see you more in transition, between stages and shots and things like that. So I really know you just as the person that you are, not so much as the actor that you are.
Yeah,
and
I can say the same.
Yeah, and now as I am watching the show over again, I'm getting to really have a good respect for the actor that you are, watching you doing your performance. Yeah.
I'm waiting for the other punch from behind the back.
No, there's no punch.
I'll provide the punch.
No punch. It's just
guys
good to watch.
Always put practical jokes, so I'm never sure. Sure.
No. It's just I honestly I didn't know the magnitude of the performances that everybody was delivering on the show.
Yeah, they were
watching you, watching Renee, watching Armin. I'm hooked on the show, and it's good to watch episode by episode and see relationships forming. The relationship with you and Colin, for example, and I just really have an appreciation for the work that you did.
Thank you, and you were pretty good yourself too. It's innocent little angel.
Yeah, but that's air quotes in there. Yeah.
Sid, just for a little bit of background, I don't know if you know anything about our show, but Aron Eisenberg, started off 16 months ago or something like that, brought Sirach on for the purpose of reviewing new Star Trek, Discovery and Picard, as well as going through Deep Space Nine season by season, episode by episode.
Great idea.
We currently just started season 3. So as you know, it's starting to get really good. And for me, as a Star Trek fan, it's such a pleasure to work with Sirach because it's like this twofold pleasure. Number one is that he gives us cool insights, and he's a great guy to talk to, and he's always very thoughtful in what pops up in his head and the questions he has. But the other half of that is that it's always a Star Trek nerd's dream to bring somebody in that's never watched Star Trek and to watch them as they watch it for the first time. So Sirach is like the savvy veteran that knows all the stories at the same time as being the Star Trek infant, and sees things for the first time saying, this is actually really well written. And we're like, I know, dude. So that's what he's saying.
Really? Yeah. It's true. I haven't, you're going to be asking me questions about Star Trek, and I haven't seen these shows for a long time, So
So I know that was
that's
a motorcycle.
Me. I'm sorry. That's my motorbike.
I thought it was Chewbacca. I thought we were in some kind of cross-meld Star Wars.
I didn't know this show had sound effects included.
Suddenly Chewbacca sounds like Luciano Pavarotti. It sounds
disagree.
But I always had a question for you, Sid, about like the transition that you made, because you literally moved from another country to be on the show, right?
Yeah.
What was that process?
I did an audition on a Thursday, and I was on a plane on Tuesday.
Wow.
To audition again in front of the Paramount execs.
So you sent in a video? You sent yours by video, the first one?
I sent my video, and I had the one scene with Nanar's character, Kira Nerys, and I just had to say no. That was it. And I delivered that with aplomb. I delivered that well. I delivered that finely.
Yeah.
And I said no. And then I flew to America and got in front of all these 36 people. You remember that audition we did in front of all the executives?
Yeah, that was fun.
It might have been 25, but it was a lot of people.
There was a lot of people in the room. Yes.
And I just went, no, again. And they were like, thank you very much. That was excellent. Really
I mean, in fairness, that's a really good no. That is a really, really good no.
But welcome.
Like I'm about to offer you my job right now based on that no.
It's all about the syllable. It's all about the syllable.
It's the pronunciation, guys.
Just gotta hit it. Gotta hit it hard.
Gotta hit that no.
And then I walked outside the door, and there was a line of other people, some of whom looked a bit like me, coming into audition for the same role. And the head casting director, Julie Lowry, yeah. Yeah, she came out with me, and I believe it was her, and just said, thank you very much, everybody. We won't be needing you today. And that was kind of clue to me that I might have actually got the job. And then someone came downstairs with me and said, so you're looking forward to coming to live in Los Angeles? And I was like, what on earth do you mean? Yeah. So they kind of offered me the job right there. And I've since learned that I was actually, but Rick Berman had asked me for me to come over and do the work. So the no wasn't particularly challenging because it wasn't meant to be. And they obviously didn't want me to screw it up by having to learn a whole sentence. And I came out to America, and within a month, within about 5 months, I stayed in a hotel for the first month, and that was crazy because I was living in Tooting. I was on pretty low rent. I was
Tooting, that's Southern London, yeah.
Southern London, exactly.
Right,
it was
I
a
was
lovely
there
place.
for a while, yeah.
Absolutely, and it was just a cheap apartment I shared with a friend of mine. And it just was a complete change of everything I knew. I mean, I was going to get $7,500 a week. I couldn't dream about getting money like that. I mean, since I've learned that's pretty peanuts, and I was like, all right, ask for a few more. But I was super impressed with myself for that. And I remember going into a car showroom after about 3 months and just pointing at a car and saying, I'll have that one. And it was a Chrysler Baron. I didn't know about cool cars, clearly. And so I picked up a green Chrysler Baron convertible. Yeah. Someone cut the roof, with a knife. Obviously, seen some of my work.
Oh, wow.
So it was a massive culture change.
Well, maybe it was with a scalpel.
Yeah.
If they had seen some of your work. I don't know. Sirach's shaking his head.
I have no comment.
It must have been pretty huge change for you too.
Yeah, it was. I mean, as far as it was, because I had now to juggle school and work, doing both, and so yeah, it was a huge thing. It changed our life, as our family life. It made me actually the breadwinner of the house, which was kind of a weird thing to be a teenager and you're paying all the bills and stuff.
Making the dough, man.
Making the bread.
How did you juggle that, kind of being like a 15-year-old kid, being the breadwinner, but still having to be but they're still the boss? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a delicate play right there. Yeah. My mom was, one of the original mom managers, and so she would be on the set with me as a guardian.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
she's fierce. I remember her. She's lovely.
Yeah. And then at some point, but it's weird because I actually don't get to spend the money. The money doesn't actually come to me as a child. It goes into a bank account and all this kind of weird structure of it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't myself I wasn't walking around with a whole bunch of money and I'll take a Chrysler Baron.
You didn't buy a Chrysler Baron?
It took me a while to get a Chrysler Baron.
Making it rain in high school, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have that, but I did. I was living a good life, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to do those kinds of things and see those places, and meet guys like you.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
So
you couldn't the cafeteria at school and go cookies and milk or everywhere.
Yeah, for the house.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. No, I couldn't. I didn't have that kind of leverage right there. my first car was actually a hand-me-down from my mom. So it was like a Mazda Protege. I remember that car.
Not bad.
Yeah. So I was living comfortably, but I wasn't, balling yet. So, but when I became 21, then I think I started to get some access to money, and I realized, oh wait, I can buy stuff. And that's when I started being foolish.
You know what? That's great that you kind of saved it, because you at least had a bit of distance from the show to go, right, now I've actually saved my money, because most of us didn't, So it's fantastic.
Yeah. And I invested it in schooling. I put myself through college, put my sister through college. And
oh, nice.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
And Sid, how long were you acting before you got this gig?
I'd been to acting school about I'd left acting school maybe 3 years before this, before coming to do Deep Space Nine, and I'd had a TV series, a 6-part mini series called The Big Battalions, and that was my first job outside of theatre. You have to do a kind of compulsory theatre job when you come out of acting school in order to get your union card. And so everybody's trying to get a theatre job when they leave acting school in England, because you spend 3 years at acting school and now you're ready. And I went up to Manchester and did some random plays up there. And then I did this Big Battalion series. And then I did a movie called A Dangerous Man, Lawrence After Arabia. It's a long title. But it was kind of interesting because that was Ray Fiennes' first movie and my first movie.
Lawrence After Arabia.
Lawrence After Arabia, yeah. So that was basically both of us were doing our first thing, and we played a kind of buddy. It's a buddy movie, really, about Faisal and Lawrence. The Omar Sharif, Alec Guinness character. And in the movie Lawrence of Arabia, the real, the big one, the Faisal was broken up into 2 parts. The King Faisal, or Prince Faisal, I'm not sure whether it was king by then. Probably Prince, I can't remember. And Omar Sharif played one and Alec Guinness played the other. And I got a really nice postcard from Alec Guinness saying that was really cool. Well done.
For those of you at home, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi listening in. But right now all the Star Trek nerds are like, we know that. We know who he is.
And Ray Fiennes turned out to be a fantastic actor as well.
He turned out pretty well, didn't he?
He did good for himself.
He did good for himself. The boy done good. And we kind of saw each other a bit over the years, and then, like most actors, kind of part ways. Mm-hmm. But it was fun.
So when you started working on Deep Space Nine, Sid, was there something that just completely surprised you? Like, besides the money at the time, was there something like when you walked in and there was just like this huge set, or was it, Cirroc's professionalism, or was there just some big pleasant surprise when you first showed up?
I don't know about the other guys, but it was all pretty intimidating. It was the way they do it. You're kind of handled by the marketing people. So they introduce you they get all of you there like a few days early, and they get you all suited up and put it in costume, and that's all kind of, wow, this dressing room's huge, and the studios. I mean, walking onto Paramount Lot, if you're an actor of any age, is kind of mind-blowing. If you're actually walking in there because you work there, not because you're going to take some tour. You're walking through the glory, the gate Gloria Swanson used. You're walking through those kind of people have been using these sound stages before us. And amazing movies have been shot on the sound stages we're shooting on. And we had 2 of them, maybe even 3. We might have had a flyaway set studio. I think it might have been 3. I can't. Do you remember 3 of them? I think
3 sound stages. Yeah, 17, 18, and 4.
We had huge real estate in this place, and we were bang opposite The Next Generation, who I knew that show. And then you get shuffled into the press, and you have to stand a certain way and have your photograph taken a million times by a million different people. Then you're interviewed by 100 journalists. It's just crazy. So if you're not a little bit intimidated by that process, at 26 or whatever age I was when I started, you would be kind of cold-hearted. And I was totally out of my depth. I was just completely alien to me. And it only got comfortable once we started to work, because then I could do what I could do. And I've always been uncomfortable ever since about cameras and press and all that stuff, because I just was never very comfortable. I just like to be the character. I'm not that confident about me, Sid. I've got better at it since I'm now in my mid-50s. But back then I was terrible. And I was just a real disappointment to the marketing department.
You hit that well, because from my perspective, I thought you were like such a pro, and that, you know, this was just like one of the 100 TV shows that you have done. I felt like you were the man already. So I didn't know that you were intimidated by any of the same things that I myself was like intimidated by.
Absolutely the same as you. I was in the same. Wow. I mean, 10 years difference. You know, probably 12 years parted us in age.
Yeah.
No, it can't be. You're much younger than me. So I must have been much older. I don't know. I can't remember what.
No, I was about half your age when I started. So
yeah,
26. I was 13. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm 13 years. Yeah, you're 2 years older than my brother. So it's we were on the same page, and I had to look to people like Avery and and the other thing that happened, that no one liked my character. So that was a real bummer, and I got the worst reviews. And I mean, there was one review which I remembered, and I'll never forget it, because one of the lines in it was, and Bashir throws like a girl. What that is below the belt. That is totally inappropriate thing to say for many reasons.
You know, it's funny though that you mentioned that, because it sounds kind of like a metaphor to how you're saying when you first arrived, you were nervous, you were kind of overwhelmed. Almost seemed like they wrote your character like that too. Sure. And then later on, and Sirach and I are always noticing how your character, we're only starting the third season, but your character is already starting that arc of getting more confident and stronger, and, you know, less of that other stuff from the first season. And, you know, Sirach's always kind of pointing that out. Sometimes jokingly, we have a little fun.
I point out because, you know, in the beginning, your character is literally, you know, shooting lines at every girl he sees, trying to get in bed with them. And so
you were aware.
So I was like, okay, he's got to be, you know. And then they start making you, you know, more, you know, what you are, which is the doctor and scientifically aware of things, and you're using, you know, the skill sets that we thought you had, that we know you have, which is why you passed up through Starfleet so fast.
Well, you know what happened, and this is all because of a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. Rick, I think it's well known now, but Rick initially got excited about me to come and play Commander Sisko.
That's right. I heard that.
On the movie that he'd seen that he really liked on PBS, which was A Dangerous Man with Ray Fiennes, I had a big old beard. I looked a lot old. I looked probably, you know, early 30s. And I think his plan was that. And then when I arrived and they went, you know, he's kind of a kid. This guy's probably not going to make a good commander. And he was like, okay, we'll give him the doctor. So they didn't have a good idea of what they wanted. So they intended, through all the publicity and everything, you could see that they meant for me to be the cookie cutter, good looking young guy that every show needs, apart from Sirach, of course. But he's a bit too young to.
I was too young. You were the guy.
I was supposed to be that guy, and so
you were. Everybody, every time I talk about you, they're saying, you know, Sid was the sexiest guy on the show. Say, all right, I got
it. Anyway, I was incredibly not that. You know, I was thin as a rake. I didn't have muscles or anything. They had to put fake chest in me just to make me look a bit bigger. And I know Patrick Stewart and I had these fake chests.
I think Brent Spiner did too.
He did?
I believe so. At least the first season or two of Next Generation.
I'm wearing your old fake chest actually right now, so just for the record.
I just couldn't get off the ground because they were actually pitching me as the wrong character. And once they realized that, no, he's never going to get the girl. That's not him. That's not his thing. Right. His thing is relationships with other people that aren't girls. And his thing is being a kid trying to learn how to be a grown-up doctor, but being a good doctor. So once they left that behind, once they dropped the fake image of young juvenile lead, which is what they want, the slot they needed to fill. It was filled beautifully by Jonathan Frakes in The Next Generation. And then it was kind of a crash and burn for me. We all had to feel our way around, and the studio kept trying to fire me every year. And Rick, and I'm eternally grateful to him for this, constantly went to bat for me and said, "We're not firing him. He's gonna come good. He's gonna come good." And the studio eventually lost interest in the whole show. They couldn't be bothered. They weren't interested in it. It didn't do the ratings that Next Generation did, so they were like, "This is no good." But they kept it going because it would have been so embarrassing to admit failure. And thank goodness.
Got really good. No spoilers, Sirach, but it gets really good.
It gets really good, yeah.
It starts getting really good.
And that's the one thing I want to just add to what you said, Sid, is that I felt the uncertainty of year by year. They didn't say, "Hey, you guys are going to be on for 5, 6, 7 years. Don't worry about it. Buy a house, do this, whatever. Settle down." It was more like, okay, season 1's over. Are we going to get picked up? They wouldn't tell us until,
season 2,
a month before. Before. And so it was always like, it was a limbo state. And I think the studio do that purposely so that actors don't feel comfortable.
Absolutely. You know what? They don't want the actors comfortable. Otherwise they start asking for money or crazy stuff, bigger trailers and stuff like that. Right. No, once they gave us I knew by season 3 because they gave us bigger trailers. They had us in these tiny little horse boxes. and by the time we got to season 3, they gave us this, like a proper Winnebago. And I asked for a modem to be put in my Winnebago because I was a computer game addict. Yeah. And they installed one, so I could play, because you have to sit around for probably 6 hours out of 8 in a day. You just sit in a trailer waiting. And then you play, on stage for 2 hours. So I made sure I was well entertained by, I had the modem and some free line to whatever, DSL or whatever it was back then, to play my computer games.
Which game?
Back in those days, I think I was playing Ultima Online, which is an old school MMORP. And it was, look down, a scrolling screen, and your little characters would run around from above, bird's eye view type stuff.
Cool.
And then I graduated to kind of play Everquest, which is the first 3D first person view type deal, MMORP. So I was massively into online community gaming. I was really enjoyed playing with a lot of other people from all over the world, meeting those guys as an anonymous person.
I didn't know that. This is the first time I heard that. I didn't even know you were playing games.
I have an Xbox over there, and I still mess around. I'm not so fervent anymore, but I still play.
I have a question. I know you have one too, Ryan.
No, go ahead.
I'll let you go first. But my question is about the way you perform the character. It's not an ethnic character, and I wanted to ask you about playing the ethnic characters that you have played in different movies. They may have you. I think it was Syriana, where you played opposite Clooney, and then this character, which is more generic, and I don't see a nationality. I don't see, any ethnicity in this character.
I don't belong to anybody. My mother was British. My father was Sudanese. I was born in Africa. I was raised in Great Britain, in London, at the very beginning, and it kind of left me without an identity. Kind of left me with I'm not black enough to be black, and I'm not white enough to be white. So I'm kind of always neither one nor the other. So I opted to try and become both, rather than opt out. So I'm happy to say that I'm African. I'm happy to say that I'm British. Yeah. And especially when it comes to a country like this, where it's very important that everybody knows what color you are. It's kind of become more important recently, but it's always been really important. And I always used to tease Avery about the fact that he would call himself African-American male, a brown African-American male, not black. He hated that word. Yeah. At least I think he hated that word, because I was like, well, you're not. You're just American. I'm African English, because I would born in Africa and grew up in India. You were born in America and grew up in America. That makes you American.
Right.
And I used to tease him about that because he was like, you have to be different, don't you? You always have to be something else. And he would give me books by Cornel West. He tried to really get me into the African-American experience. I'm sure he did the same to Sirach later on.
I have. Yeah.
Absolutely. Did you get that Race Matters book? I got the Race.
I have the Race Matters book. I do.
Yeah.
And I've got a long list of other books that I need to read. A long list.
So playing culture, which is your question, playing other cultures, because half of me, a third of me is probably Arab. I mean, North Sudan, where I was born, is an Arab society,
for sure.
Muslim.
Yeah.
And so playing those guys is not weird to me. And it was really comforting to me that we played Bashir as nothing. It was like, no, you don't know who he is until he opens his mouth. You do not get a telegraph. And I think we tried to play Commander Cisco that way too at the beginning. The blackness was not an issue. It was a huge bombshell for America because no captain, especially if something no commander, especially if something so sacred as Star Trek, could possibly be black. But then they went and did it again by, casting a woman as Captain Janeway in the next show. So Star Trek just keeps defying expectations. And so it was really important that Bashir wasn't part of that. And I don't remember if you had a lot, because I haven't seen the show for a long time, if you had a lot of shows where you talked about your blackness with your father and what that meant to you.
Not so much. More of it about when I first become friends with Nog, they talk about human and Ferengi. So it was more of the human thing. It wasn't, hey, as a black person, this is this is what we do. Which is the
beauty of Star Trek. And, and so I think that and the metaphor, because it's a science fiction, is the racism is into species. I mean, I remember that Mirror Mirror episode from from the original series with the white face and the black face, and the guy with the black face and the white face on the other side.
Right.
And they hated each other because they couldn't.
Come on, this guy is white on the left side. He's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's great. That's good stuff. That's good sci-fi. So it was really important that Bashir didn't become Arab. Well, the name is the clue in the title. Bashir means healer in Arabic.
Is that right?
And so obviously my parents turned up, who happened to be Pakistani or Indian, I think, but splitting hairs. And we didn't really talk about anything but the fact that I hid that I was genetically enhanced, and that was an ethical problem. So thankfully I could speak with a British accent, and because that was, otherwise I'd have been at sea. It would have been too hard for me.
They love the British accent. I mean, look, even the French captain of Next Generation spoke with a British accent.
That's true. That's true. Exactly. Yeah, Patrick is probably one of the first British actors in Hollywood. On your TV every week, because America weren't really big on having British actors in Hollywood shows. And I know there was a woman in that amazing woman in Frasier, who also had a British accent.
Right, yeah.
Kramer, I don't remember which one came first, but the first one, she's...
Yeah, I think maybe her name was Daphne or something.
Daphne,
the actress.
Frasier, yeah.
I don't remember the actress's name.
A British actress. That was kind of it. It was Patrick, and now and obviously Deanna Troy, and me.
Yeah.
Now you can't. The place is lousy with British actors. You can't move 5 feet in Hollywood without hitting a British actor. They've taken all the Americans.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Everybody's British.
Yeah. I didn't want to say anything, but even the black guys are British, and I'm like,
yeah, everyone is. Everyone is.
What's up, man?
We're cheaper, man. It's just cheap. It's just cheap.
It's just so. It got to me when they did the British black Martin Luther King.
Oh yeah,
I was like, "What? They couldn't have a regular black guy do this?
They couldn't have
a regular one.
They got the import one. Couldn't find one locally.
Import one.
That's, it is what it is. So
we just found a cheap one.
Yeah, well, he did it good. So I know, credit to his work.
He's a terrific man. He's really good.
So speaking of England, I know we only have kind of a few more minutes left. I did want to touch really quick on Game of Thrones, because you were on Game of Thrones. I know a lot of us Star Trek actors or Star Trek fans that watch Game of Thrones, when they announced that you were going to play a character, we our ears perked up a little bit. And I actually remember reading a quote from you saying that something to the effect of, once you are cast in Game of Thrones, you kind of walk with a little more swagger, or something to that nature. I don't remember the exact quote.
It was a bit like that. And by the way, there was a massive hierarchy within the cast of Game of Thrones, because there were hundreds of those guys.
Right.
They've been, doing 10 more shows than you, or 3 seasons, or whatever it is. And they're like, check this guy out. But I ended up doing just a handful of shows. It did enormously help my career at that point. I think. I mean, I'd been doing kind of fine, but I'd been doing, as Sirach said, just some of those more Arab-centric roles, and this put me straight back in the middle of basically genre territory, like Bashir was in Star Trek, where it didn't really matter, and I had a preposterous Spanish accent, and it was really great. I mean, I think what happened, I was trying to explain this the other day to somebody, but I was just called up and they said, we're going to kill you, because I had another season to do.
Really?
And I was like, okay, trying to put a brave face on it. And because I was just getting going, I was just figuring out, and you'll know if you watch Game of Thrones or are interested in Game of Thrones, that character went nowhere.
Well, it did seem sudden. It stopped suddenly. I was surprised by it.
So full of promise, because basically we finally get to see Dawn, and we finally get to see this wild culture with these sexy looking people and this amazing food. And I think what happened was that they decided that they were 2 years away from the end of the show. They knew that it was going to finish, and that they just had too many plates spinning, and they just had too many loose ends to. And if you're a fan of the show, my wife's a huge fan. That she was really disappointed with the last season. It just didn't work.
It's sad.
They squeezed a lot in there too.
Exactly. And I think my character Diane would just have been yet another problem unsolved. So I think they just thought they'd, cut their losses. And before people got too attached to him, because believe me, people were loving that character, because they were so willing they were just so happy that someone not a monster,
right?
Who was still a leader, was around, and they were really intrigued to see how that. And also the book has a really interesting character. So that's what probably happened.
Yeah, where was that filmed?
It was filmed all over the world. It was filmed a bit of it was filmed in Seville. All the stuff in the palace was filmed in Seville. Amazing city, amazing. I probably don't want to go there.
Beautiful,
but amazing city. Go there in a year, and we filmed a load in Croatia. I know they filmed in Belfast, in Norway. I mean, they filmed all over the world. They just had so much money; they could just do whatever they want. They just waited and said, "We're filming here." 2 complete crews working at the same time. The price of 2 movies all the time being spent, because they've got, I can't remember what the 2 crews were called. One was obviously Dragon and the other one was something else. But yeah, state-of-the-art equipment, the finest director's money can buy, etc., etc.
Yeah, but I think kind of what you're alluding to is with Game of Thrones, anybody that knows about that show knows that the way they tie up loose ends is by just killing somebody. They're like, what are we going to do with you know what? Let's just kill him.
He's a loose end. I may be wrong. My theory may be wrong, because it might be they just went, this guy sucks.
No, I don't think so.
They're like, let's kill the king of Michael Dorn.
Yeah, and I was killed in such an improbable way. I mean, I have the biggest bodyguard you ever saw in your life standing over me. And I had, and that was brilliant. And I had 3 girls, young girls, in their 20s. And they managed to just walk up to me and stab me without anyone going, hey, wait a minute, that's not cool. And that was very funny. But I didn't see the death scene, but I had to do that again. And it's something coming to set on Game of Thrones to play your death scene. Because everybody's like,
they don't want to talk to you or look you in the eye. Everybody's like,
I'm going to start throwing stuff. he's going to be.
Make it painless. Make it as painless as possible.
He's a loser.
He's a loser.
Last episode. Don't worry about it. You don't have to be nice.
Yeah.
Wow. It was an awkward day. I actually felt weird. It was weird. It was not friendly. It didn't. I mean, they're perfectly friendly, but it wasn't as friendly as it usually is when everyone goes, "Oh, good to see you."
Oh.
Yeah.
So we do talk. No, go ahead, Sirach. I was going to change the subject.
I was going to change the subject too, but mine was about conventions, and I don't see you doing many conventions, and I know people are dying to see you. Now, obviously, not the time to be doing it, but was there a reason why you were staying away from them for a while?
You know what? I just don't have the energy. I give a lot when I go to a convention. I mean, I'm really full on, and I just don't have it to do. I can't do it more than once or twice in a year, and I'll often skip those. But a lot of the time, I have been working.
Right.
So I had a story from it. I do this kind of social event once a week on a Friday with people who are interested in coming to hang out on Zoom. Mm-hmm. And one of the people there was from China. Two of the people there were from China. And one of them said, "My friend Maggie is here on this Zoom thing with us. And I've got to tell you what happened. She bought a ticket all the way from China to come and see you in Vegas in 2017. Wow. And you cancelled the day before." And I cancelled a lot. So it got embarrassing and problematic. And I began to, and other people were saying, "It's really costing people a fortune that you're not coming to this thing." Because I would work a lot in spurts. I'd just be doing another show. And that was weighing on my mind too. So I just think, well, if I will desperately try and make it to the one I book and forget about the rest.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. I go to Star Trek Las Vegas all the time, and I have every year for maybe 12 or 13 years, ever since I was 9. And
yeah. He's only 21, ladies and gentlemen.
But yeah, it's true. I don't remember seeing you as often as some of the other mainstays.
I'm there sometimes. I mean, it's like John says, your friend who we met just before the Zoom thing, mm-hmm. That he's got a Cisco doll and a Bashir doll he's waiting to get signed.
Yeah.
They're the two guys he can't find.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he'll be happy to know you called them dolls, by the way.
What are they called?
Oh, they're action figures.
Action figures.
We actually make them do things.
They're not dolls.
You playing with your dolls again, John? No, yeah. So that's the reason why you're not at all the conventions. You don't want to disappoint people and have to cancel.
I was tired of disappointing people.
And you were working.
I was working, and also they just cost a lot of psychic energy.
Right.
You want to be there for every single one of those 2,000 people, or however many people are there, and they keep coming, and it just is very costly. So try and keep it to a minute.
I'm amazed by how Shatner is able to do so many conventions at his age, and just the energy thing.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing.
He's amazing.
And I haven't seen his show, but I'm told it's actually funny. So, I've heard him backstage, and I just hear the crowd laughing and laughing and laughing. And so I know he's got it. He's still whipping them into a frenzy.
He's still telling everybody to get a life out there.
Absolutely.
So, wow. we gotta go in just a couple minutes here. But before we go, we did want to talk about our brother, Mr. Aron Eisenberg.
Absolutely. I could talk about him all day. We should have started the show with him.
But that's what I was afraid of. If we start with that, then we'd never get our Game of Thrones jokes in. So, do you have any thoughts, or sometimes we talk about something that people may not have known about Aron, whether it's a story or an aspect of him or something that really stood out to you that people that never met him don't know. Is there anything like that?
Aron was a really unusual dude. I mean, he was. I know he was very close with Sirach and not as much with me but I sort of got to know him much better after the show because I never got to work with him very But as the show wore on into years 5 and 6 and 7, when we all all saw each other, Aron would have the courage always to come up and say something rude, mostly.
Yeah. That's his signature. That's his hallmark.
Courage.
If he could do that, courage. Yeah.
Yes.
So he felt comfortable about coming in and slapping you on the face verbally, and then running away. He was incredibly funny. It was just really, really funny. But as I got to know him afterwards, because we had lots of talks and conventions after that, because he did a lot of conventions, so he seemed to be at every one I went to, and I was really happy. And I got to meet Melissa and obviously his children at certain points. And I realized that there was a shy, retiring, insecure man there. And this big bravado about is kind of a cover, his armor of being funny and being larger than life, which he absolutely wasn't physically. And all those things. There was a really vulnerable, easily hurt person, but that made him incredibly empathetic, incredibly emotional about other people's trouble. So he would weep for other people,
right.
And he would do that on a regular basis. If he said this person needs help, because Aron's so astute about when someone's hurting, because my goodness, he suffered the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune himself. I mean, he had to keep cranking that kidney up, keep it just going for the last 5-10 years of his life. And that is something that he was both people. He was a genuinely, emotionally sensitive human being who must have made a fantastic father. And obviously, I could see he was a loving husband. He was loved back.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally relate to that vulnerability that's inside at the core of that. And a lot of what we saw with the playfulness and the ribbing and stuff was that protective shell, how to keep people out of that place.
His armor. When you got to know
his armor,
you did. You saw he wore it. He was more honest about. You got to see his vulnerability, and he was happy to let you take care of him. Look up. Take care of that. He's okay. And I think that takes enormous courage. So he was courageous in the first place for coming up to me, an actor he barely knew, and slapping me in the face verbally, and then making fun of me and then running away, which he did on a constant basis. And then he was incredibly brave to show that he had this vulnerable side, without asking for pity, and just going, and this is me, by the way. And I guess I'm really lucky to have seen that before he passed.
That's definitely a word that comes up a lot when people talk about Aron is bravery, in whatever regard, whether it was acting bravery, whether it was social bravery, whether it was the bravery of just, facing the day head on based on what he was given, with what he was born with,
And I think just to highlight one more thing you said, Sid, was without asking for pity. He didn't want your shame. He didn't want your pity. He didn't want you to say, "Oh man, I feel sorry for you." He wanted to be, not looked at like he had any disability, no handicap. He was just he didn't want any of that.
Oh no,
no. He just wanted a fair shot at being able to do him.
Absolutely. And he was like, he took it as well as he could give it. I was always calling him big guy, and he was right. I got it. Got this joke now. I understand this joke. And so he could take it as much as he could do it, and that just and some people, that's how it's a wonderful way to relate. If you can be teased and tease someone, and no one gets upset, and everyone takes it as a sign of affection. I think we miss that a little bit in our society. We miss the fact that everybody just gets up and at it. Really offended the minute something goes slightly left or right.
Right.
Yeah. And he was from cut from a much, a more durable cloth. And I'm just a little bit disgusted that he had to start a kind of GoFundMe account to get himself a transplant near the end.
Right, a few years back, right?
Yeah, and I think that was. I just think that a country that doesn't make sure that happens to people, that make sure they get kidneys, regardless of how much money they are. I know I'm going to go on a bit of a Bernie rant, but that is as good an example of why we need to give medicine, free medicine, to everybody, because you don't want people ill actually trying to beg people for money so they can get a kidney. And I was like, that really made me think, because I'd never really thought about that before. And here was this wonderful man, young man, who just couldn't afford to save his life.
Yeah, one of the fortunate things, though, from my perspective of hearing him tell those kinds of stories, was how he was able to connect with people because of that. And a lot of the people that are still to this day fans of this show are some of the people that he connected on his journey to get a kidney or recovering from it. And that was one thing Aron was really good at, was connecting with people and especially the fans.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
Now you could approach him from any direction. It's not.
Yeah, he would. I mean, even with having to go through that process, he would talk about it in a positive way. Man, I'm so glad I got the chance to. Right. I would meet so many people, and I mean, the people are so nice, and they just really. And he would always talk about it in this kind of not like, oh, it sucks, I have to do this. It was more like the opportunity. Man, I had opportunity to meet somebody who was so generous, and they wanted to give me their kidney, but that was the kinds of conversations he would have. And
You'd probably be up there right now going, hey, dying was a bummer. I miss you guys, but it ain't so bad up here. I've made a lot of friends. Yeah. I'm hanging out. I slapped him in the face a couple of times verbally. He's cool with it.
He's cool with it. And I'm a captain up here, too.
By the way, yeah.
Yeah.
Captain Nog.
Yeah.
So two quick things. One, Sid, just to finish up your thought, was that when you're talking about, how it's sad that he had to have a GoFundMe, just made me think, like, imagine what life was like 10 years ago or 50 or 100 when we didn't even have GoFundMes, like it was even, it's even worse. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That's a good point.
He didn't complain, by the way. I was the one who was pissed. He was fine. As Sirach said, he was like, took it on the chin. No problem at all. I'll find the money. Let's go.
Yeah. And the other thing is that we're still, to this day, talking to people that were touched by Aron's performances or touched by him as a person at meeting them at a convention, or just that he helped them somewhere along the line. There's a lady out in Adelaide, Australia, that she said he used to call her all the time when she was sick and in the hospital as a teenager. And stories like this all the time about how he helped people throughout the years. Do you think that, since I only met him maybe 5 or 7 years ago, did he become more compassionate as he got older, or was he just always like that? Do you know?
He was always like that. But I think I think given the adversity under which he lived his life, always got one foot over the edge. Never sure whether he's going to make it through the next year, or maybe it's going to be over in the next year. And then having children, having the courage to go, I'm going to bring up these kids, which he did, and marrying this amazing woman. I think he was courageous and making friends and building bridges really from the early days. I just didn't know him so well. But when I first got to know him, he was already like that. So I can't believe he just became like that the day I got to know him. I'm certain he was like already, because he was, walking up to strangers and saying stuff and making them feel good. And he was a really good actor. And that was, and he kind of didn't really leave the office. He kept that role kind of going because his character was a bit like that too, sort of larger than life, big heart, and all that stuff. And so I think he kind of played a bit of Nog in as Aron, and there's a lot of Aron in Nog.
Yeah, and I would say too that, just to add to that, I think that as we got to know him more, we started to see those different qualities. But I think it was always there, and it just takes time to get to know Aron.
Yeah,
and understand his humor and things.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been just a terrible 12 months for us because we lost Renee and we lost Ev. Yeah. And it's just weird to start losing each other because it just seems like we go on forever, but we forget that our characters may go on forever, but we certainly do. And it was quite a wake-up call to lose both those such close friends, close colleagues that we spent years of our lives with, longer than you spent at 2 colleges. And this has been a really sobering year, but we also have a great reason to talk about it, and a great reason to talk about Renee. Renee, super huge, one of the best character actors to ever hit the American stage of any kind. So a lot of people will do some great talking for it on behalf of Renee. Right. Aron never got didn't live long enough to have this amazing 40-year career that Renee has had, a 50-year career that Renee has had. Wow. So we should talk a lot more about Aron to make sure he catches up. But but we miss them both terribly.
We do.
All right. Well, on that note, I do wish we could talk about Renee a little bit more. Maybe we should talk about him.
There'll be people talking about Renee. Yeah. That's good. He'll be fine. He'll be relaxed about it.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought him up. Sid, thank you so much for joining us and for telling us so many great stories and so many great thoughts.
It's really been my pleasure. It's really great to meet you, and it's really lovely to see you again. So really lovely. Just like
it's an honor to have you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Sid, I was fighting this, but like I noticed this in the first minute during the recording. The women are right. You are a beautiful man. This guy, you are. I saw this like
21st century of you, man. Thank you.
I was like, at first I was like, nah, it's just the British accent. Women just like British accent, but you're a beautiful man. So
that's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Oh, is this thing still recording? Well, whatever.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Ryan.
Yeah, I can't blush when you're brown. You don't blush.
Yeah.
Not much blushing going on.
Yeah, you got to do it straight, man. You can't blush like that,
Ryan. Anyway, it comes from the heart.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And for everybody at home, always remember the 7th rule.